Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey for the last several years. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big thanks to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind our logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the Halloween and horror genre, but does great commission pieces of any type. So, Bubbly, you're with us tonight. You're in the house.
Yes, I made it. The storm didn't stop me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
I'm so excited. Anytime I get to see your face, I'm excited.
Thanks. It's always great when you have a good show waiting too, which is phenomenal.
I was crying all day. There's a storm. I can't lose internet. I need to be there. I really want to be there.
The storms. 'Tis the season of the storms. We always get that.
Yeah. Living in Timbuktu, you lose internet right away.
You do. You do. Just making my way down through the list here. Janie. Hi, Janie. Janie just had a birthday go by, so I hope it was really nice.
I hope it was a great day.
Well, everybody's filling in. So without further ado, because there's so much information to cover, I've really been looking forward to this. I have read the book as it was sent to me a while back. And it's like I was saying to the author, who is Reinhard Denke. I got that right. Thank you, Reinhard. It was not what I expected. It was better. It's not a typical what you would think it is at all. It's not, you hear so many accounts and I don't disvalue anybody's accounts. I'm an experiencer. I have accounts. I've interviewed so many people, met so many people. People love to share their stories and I love to hear them. But this one was unusual. You'll notice there's a lot of things that maybe some of you guys have been through. And if there's people there who don't want to discuss it, then, there's ways, as you'll see tonight, there are ways. And, E.B. David, this is like a true life-altering account, I have to say, life-altering. And, he's coming forward and he talked about it to make this book happen. He's going to share the story with us tonight. And big thank you, of course, to author and screenwriter, Reinhard, I apologize, Denke. Tongue twister for me, and I don't know why, because I'm usually very articulate with my words. So anyway, I know. It's been a
lot of vowels.
It's been a lot
of vowels.
Yeah. Well, we lost a family friend today, so.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I know. It's okay. It's
Oof, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. So I'm muddling through. If I mumble and muddle too much, I apologize. But let's get on with the show. We're going to have a really great time, and you guys are in for a real treat with this story. So without further ado, Reinhard Denke and E.B. David. Thank you. Hi, guys. Hello. Hi. I apologize. I did not mean to even go in a different direction with your name.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm blessed with an unusual name.
It is. It's a great name. It's just one. I had it all down pat too before that. So anyway, the book, like I said, it's excellent. It is excellent. Not what I expected. Definitely went down a different road, and got my wheels turning. And
Good.
yeah, exactly. Mission accomplished. And for those of you guys who want to find the book, if you don't mind, I'd like to put it up here on the screen. So people could see what we're talking about. There it is. And this can be found on Amazon. Guys, the write-up and the purchase link to Amazon is in the show description. So you can most certainly find it there, and I highly recommend it. So let's go into humble beginnings a little bit. We'll put this back up a little later.
Don't forget to leave a review.
Yes. Don't forget to leave a review. Right there.
Oh yeah, the reviews are very important.
Very important.
Yeah, they are. So the question, Reinhard, is for you. How did you and EB meet, and how did this book come into play? What made you want to write a book? Meet somebody, story.
Yeah, that's a good question. I met him through mutual friends, and I found that we had similar interests, but in television and movies. You know, I work as a screenwriter, and we're both fascinated with movies and TV shows from a certain period. TV shows, especially from the 1960s and 70s. We concentrated on those. Movies anywhere from the 1930s all the way up to the end of the 1980s. And anything with Gene Hackman.
Me too.
You know, he's the best. It was just the best. And his passing this year was especially difficult.
And sad.
For both, but I mean, EB and I talked about it. It's like I lost my dad, you know.
Grew up with him. That's why kind of grew. Yeah. It was, and the way he passed was so sad.
Oh, I know. It's everybody's nightmare.
Devastating. Yeah.
But we were talking about certain episodes from The Outer Limits. You know that show?
No, very well.
Mid 1960s.
Yeah.
And there was that one episode about there was a group of people from Earth that had been transplanted on another planet, and they didn't know they were on another planet. And when they would reach the end, you know, the boundary of where they were at, you know, bad things would happen. And then he just kind of casually said, "Oh, I saw a UFO one time." And it's something I have to admit, you know, I put it in the book. I'm not a UFO fanatic. I don't go to MUFON conventions. I've never been to Roswell,
right?
With a metal detector, you know. But it intrigued me because it's something I always want to see. I always want to see a UFO. I've never seen one, you know, and I'm the one who wants to see it the most. And well, not after this, not after writing this. But and then the story came out in drips and drabs. And then, EB, do you want to fill in?
Sure. I mean, you know, if you read the book, I think I probably said it in there a few dozen times at least that I don't usually like talking about this kind of thing, even my own story, because as soon as I do, people will either smirk or roll their eyes or dismiss it immediately. At least that was my experience in the past. Mm-hmm. You know, I was telling my wife about it once many years ago, and she just kind of shrugged it off. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I can tell you exactly what happened, when it happened, and go into great detail. You know, like anyone, I have an imagination, but I don't have an imagination that's so good that it creates physical and psychological issues. So anyway, yeah, that's how it happened. We were having a talk about something and I kind of froze up, and one thing led to another. And then Reinhard said, let's sit down and really talk about this. And I agreed to do it, but I've never done that before. And I mean, the reason that I have my camera off, or you have it off and I have it blocked here, is because I don't want anybody showing up at my house. Mm-hmm. I don't want anybody identifying me and tracking me down and calling me in. And I'm sure that happens. I've heard that it happens, and I'm just not that interested in being one of those people.
Nobody wants to be on the radar. And the fact that this happened so many years ago and that you still have the concern speaks volumes as to how the experience has affected you.
Yeah, I mean, these days, a lot is happening in this area. I read an article the other day. Actually, I texted it to Reinhard about an organization or an app that takes reports of undersea objects. And when my wife saw the article, I showed it to her. When she saw it, she said, "Oh, maybe sometime in the not too distant future, people will start to believe." And I said, "Yeah, hopefully including you."
No.
It's hard for a spouse. Yeah. It's hard to wrap because they don't know how to help. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that. And I respect you for wanting to remain anonymous this way.
Yeah, it's difficult. I'll just say one more thing about my feeling in general. I was driving from Southern California up to Las Vegas a couple of months ago, and there used to be this place near the border of California and Nevada that was called Alien Jerky. And it's a brand of beef jerky, and the logo for the brand is an alien head, a green head with big eyes, and which annoys me immediately. Anytime I see anything like that, I get upset, not because of anything that happened to me, but just because it's a joke. It makes a joke out of it, and I don't like it. So it used to be a trailer on the side of the road with that big alien head, Alien Jerky, and people would stop there and buy beef jerky. Well, now they've closed the trailer down, and now it's a gigantic flying saucer on the side of the road, bigger than it's bigger than a house. It's probably bigger than 2 or 3 houses. And now it's this giant store, and people park and run inside and buy souvenirs and beef jerky. And I saw it, and I don't know if I called Reinhard or I texted him from there and just said, "This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You built this thing as a beef jerky store, and you don't even realize the impact that these encounters have on people."
So basically what's happening is you're feeling like this is so serious and it's being commercialized, and people are just cashing in on, some of these experiences.
Yeah, they make it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I said kind of like Salem.
Yeah, it's not a joke. I mean, I guess to a lot of people it's a joke, but if you were in my shoes, I don't think you would think it was a joke.
No.
And that's why we're here. We want to hear your story. So Reinhard, you said, you know what? I want to connect with you on a different level, and I want to write your story. So, and of course there were stipulations in doing so. So why don't you take us to the next step?
Well, rather than write it out in a narrative, like a book or, a normal narrative, linear story, we talked with each other. We said, why don't we just make this an interview? Because a lot of times I get a lot more from reading interviews, not watching them so much as reading them. Yes. And I'm just fascinated by them. And to bring up, all men of a certain age, Playboy magazine, they used to have the interview, and they interviewed everybody. I mean, Stephen King and John Lennon. It
was a big deal to be.
Yeah, that was a huge thing, those interviews. And they were fantastic. I got more out of I learned more from those interviews about those people than I ever could anything they would say about themselves. So we did it as a form of an interview, and then it went over a period of days because we were, we had a tape recording device, and then we kept going back and forth, and I don't know, this isn't big enough. I think we need to make this. I gotta know more. I always wanted him to tell me more. Mm-hmm. Now I know the story probably better better than anybody because I've gone over it so many times, and then of course then I not type, but I input all the notes, and
Yeah.
then we went through it again, and then there were more questions, and then there was all the follow up with Delilah Balick, because that was the missing piece all the time when he would bring up the person he had the experience with. I don't know if Amelia, if you read the book, but he was with someone, and he was. I mean, that was one of our biggest conversations, was how do we find her? And finally he found her, and that's the last part of the book, and they have a follow-up conversation. It's absolutely fascinating. They experience this together.
Right, and you had stipulations to write the book.
Oh yeah, it was
from EB.
Right.
Basically.
EB, he was like, I don't want my name getting out there.
Sure.
I don't want this affecting me personally, professionally. Personally, I don't want my family. I don't want them, And so, I understand that, because not everybody can be Whitley Strieber, right? Because that's his thing. I mean, he was a perfectly normal novelist, and then he wrote Communion. And then, of course, his whole story came out. And so now when we think of Whitley Strieber, we don't even think about his other books. It's like, oh yeah, that was Communion guy.
Yeah, but there was some really rough spots in there too. Like it took a lot for him to come out and say, well, this happened to me, and this happened to me, and
it's still happening. Remember, they were following him.
It's true. Yeah,
he was on some train in the 1950s, and they were on a train with him, and it just went on. But then EB and I, we had long conversations, and then the book, it happened over time. The first conversations were in December of last year, almost a year ago, and then subsequent conversations January, February, March, April, and then we started putting it together. Because I remember I was visiting my mom in Texas when I was doing a lot of this stuff.
Right.
I'm definitely going to read it.
And I'll send it to you.
I think that
Amelia's been on hiatus. Sorry.
I was off medical. I feel like EB is so courageous and so kind and generous in sharing this, because I'm sure that there are people that are listening tonight that will read your story and somehow possibly heal and know that things do happen and that they're not alone. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. I mean, I'm hoping the same. I'm hoping that, when I spoke with Delilah, I guess I'm going to the end when I really should be. We should be at the beginning. But when I finally did speak with her, it was something that I was hesitant to ask her about. I didn't want to know if she experienced the same kinds of things over the years that I did. And I felt like it was asking too much to delve that deeply into her personal life now, because I knew her in 1982. I don't know her now. And I don't know what's happened to her over the years. I mean, professionally, I know, because I would look every now and then. I mean, I don't know, Michelle, if you want me to talk about this now or not.
You start. I mean, you can make mention of this, or you can start from the beginning. I always say, like, this is your show, so you guys take it where you want to take it.
So, okay, I will start then on the night that all of this began, which was June 29th, 1982.
Okay.
And I was in upstate New York attending a summer program at a university. And there, I wasn't doing a lot of work. I changed my mind about being there, and I wasn't very serious about it. I was trying to find a profession. I had just graduated from college, and I was kind of forcing myself to explore certain things that didn't pan out. But so I was in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York at this university, and this girl, Delilah, and another guy, Jack, we were friends, living in this dorm in the summer. There were very few people on campus because it was summer, and we were kind of on a corner of the campus, and living in this old dorm that was made out of mostly like stone and brick and cement, no air conditioning, and it was really, really hot. always very hot. But that night, it was terrible. The air was just still. There was no breeze. I had my dorm room window open, and there were streams and little waterfalls around the campus. And I used to go there during the day when my classmates were in class and I didn't feel like going. I would go down there and swim or hang out in the water and whatever. So I said to Delilah, she was with me. It was late. It was the middle of the night. And I said, do you want to go down to the waterfall with me? We can go down there and just cool off, just stand under the water and cool off. So she went and put on her bathing suit and shorts. I had shorts on and a t-shirt, and we went outside the dorm and went for a walk. And it was only a few minutes away, but we had to go down this hill, hike down this hill into this kind of heavily wooded area that had the stream flowing through it. And there was a waterfall that was feeding the stream. And I had been there many times. She had never been there. And now, middle of the night, it was pitch black. There was no light coming from anywhere. And so we went down to the waterfall and we stood there in the water. I took my t-shirt off. She was wearing her bathing suit and shorts. And we just stood there under the water, and it was fantastic. The water was cold and it was so wonderful. And probably a minute or two later, I don't think it could have been more than that, I kind of stepped away from the waterfall, and I just noticed that the plants that were in the water, these little scraggly weed-looking plants that were in the stream, that were flowing with the current of the stream, were glowing a very bright green, light green color. And so as the water flowed and these weeds or these plants would move, they would give off this bright green color. And I said to Delilah, I said, look at this. Isn't this cool? I mean, this reminds me of this place in Puerto Rico that we went to when I was a kid called Phosphorescent Bay. And they had algae in the water, this kind of special algae that if the water got mixed up, the algae would glow. And I said, that's what this must be, because this is what it looks like, and it's glowing in the water. And she said, well, okay, well, that sounds like a plausible explanation. I mean, there was no reason for these plants to be glowing this bright, bright green color. And I looked up, I just happened to glance up at the shoreline of this stream, and I noticed that the moss on the base of the trees was glowing the same green color. And any of the little plants that were on the ground near the tree stumps were glowing the same bright color. And as I started looking around, it looked like Christmas lights, like everywhere on the ground of the forest, little green lights everywhere. And so I said to Delilah, well, this can't be caused by the running water, because the moss is not in the water. These other plants are not in the water. Where could this green, glowing green light be coming from? And that's when I looked up at the sky and didn't see the sky. What I did see was an object the size of a car, about 25 feet above our heads, completely still, motionless, no sound, no wind, no noise of any kind, glowing that bright green, giving off that light green glowing color. And it was just above us, and it was above us for about half an hour without moving.
Wow.
That's scary.
Yeah.
And that's, something that Reinhard and I talked about, was that people see, quote unquote flying saucers. They see whatever they see. And usually it's this quick thing. They fly by, or you see something in the sky and it disappears, or, maybe you see something, flying for a while, whatever it is. I've never I've never heard of anyone having the kind of experience that I did where I stood under this thing. It was directly above us and it hovered there, like I said, for about a half an hour without moving at all.
Yeah, it's a substantial amount of time.
It was a lot of time. And something that was important that I know I said in my interview with Reinhard many, many times is that there was no fear involved in this. I wasn't afraid. Delilah was not afraid. And we were, again, it's kind of hard. I mean, I just have to say it. It's not easy to explain, but we were told not to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like words being spoken. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a very calming suggestion that there's nothing to be afraid of. There's no reason to worry. You know, it was the kind of thing where you would think, I mean, if you saw this in a movie, maybe you would throw your stuff down and run. But that thought never came to me. It was just more of a relaxation, like just take it easy and you're fine. You're fine. There's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that's a substantial amount of time to just sit with an object. You know, some people will, they'll see these things take off right away, or, you know, if something's going to happen, they have a report going up into the craft, or they report, you know, issues with their electronics or their vehicle, depending, whatever the case may be. Now, you say you've been here several times and you've never experienced anything like this before at this location.
No, I mean, that I was there. I was in that area or living in that dorm for the summer of 1982, and I had gone down. It was always in the daytime. I would go down to the stream or go down to the waterfall, and no, it was just, I would not have thought anything of this topic at that time at all. It would not have come up. I wasn't that interested, but it happened, and what happened from that moment on over the years is just, it's just incredible. But I will say this before I forget, that a few weeks ago, you know, all right, let me remind you, 1982, June 29th, that's when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
A few weeks ago, I was talking to Reinhard and I said, you know what? I went on Google Earth and I went to that campus and I kept zooming in and zooming in until I found the dorm. And then I moved around and found the exact spot. And you can see it in the aerial photos, the screenshots that I took and sent to Reinhard. Here's the path that we took. Here's the front door of the dorm. Here's the path we took. Here's where we went down the embankment into where the stream was. Here's the waterfall. And if you, it might sound, I could see where a skeptical person would say, yeah, well, of course, you're going to go back now and you're going to say, see these things on this campus. Okay, great. Except there was no Google Earth from 1982 until, I guess, fairly recently. I never had an aerial view of this area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how was I able to then send Reinhard screenshots and say, see this arrow? Here's the path. Here's the clearing. Here's the stream. Here's the waterfall. And there were buildings that are in those aerial shots that didn't exist back in 1982. I actually looked them up to see when they were built. And I sent, I mean, Reinhard, you remember me sending you and seeing.
Yes. Yeah, it was exactly the way I envisioned it from your story. You know, it was a little more rugged in places than I thought. I mean, you guys really trekked. I mean, that was quite a hike that you underwent that night around what, 2:30 a.m. when you left the dorm because of the heat.
Yeah. And by the way, there was no one around. It was completely quiet, still. And so now from the time that we stood under it and it stayed still, Delilah and I talked to each other a little bit during that time, but it was really nothing more than, can you believe this? I mean, this is unbelievable. And then the object, I call it an orb. That's where the title of the book came from, because I said, I don't really know what to call this. So we just called it an orb. And I said, the thing was above us. It was completely still. And then all of a sudden, it started bouncing up and down in place like a ball that was being dribbled. So it was moving perfectly vertically up and down, but really only just a couple of feet in either direction. It wasn't going way up and way down, just a couple of feet up and down, bounce, bounce, bounce. That's what it was doing. It was just bouncing. And then it stopped bouncing and it was back in the original position. And then it started to slide in line segments. It would slide to the left and stop, then to the right. Then it would go on an angle, a line segment this way, that way, this way, that way. It was, I don't know if you guys remember this or if you're even old enough to know what I'm talking about, but there was a toy way back called a spirograph.
I remember, and I'm aging myself. In fact, I had one.
Okay. So in a way,
I know them only because of commercials and my sister-in-law. Sorry, didn't have one.
But in a way, that's what it reminded me of, because on a spirograph, you put the tip of the pen through the hole and then you would move it around and it would create like a flower or some kind of design.
Yeah, so almost like a mandala.
Right. Right. And the orb was moving in line segments around this clearing and back and forth across the center, back and forth, back and forth. And one of the things about it that was so amazing is that there was no drift in the flight. In other words, it didn't fly and then taper off and slide a little bit and then go back. The line segments were exact. So it would move to the right and stop. It wouldn't slide. It wouldn't move. It would just stop dead and then come back the other way and then go up on an angle and then back this way and that way and that way. And it was just flying back and forth around in these segments. And it didn't dawn on me immediately, but it was almost as if it was scanning the area below it. It was moving around and photographing, for lack of a better word, photographing everything from every angle up there.
So do you feel that it was aware of your presence?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like it was aware of our presence as soon as it told us to relax. I mean, there was no moment of anything other than being fine with it. There was no fear. There was no panic. It was just like, wow, this is cool. And then it took off from a dead stop. It took off and it went from 0 to gone in a fraction of the blink of an eye. There was no ramp up to it leaving. There was no acceleration and there it goes. It just went and crossed as far into the sky as we could see and just went away.
And Reinhard, what was your thought when you heard this initially?
Well, when he told me the story, what captured my imagination was the color green.
Yes.
Because EB kept trying to describe it to me. He goes, well, it's really hard for me to describe this particular shade of green. And so he ended up using the term, and EB, I remember, electric lime. What's the color?
I like it.
He said it was like a blacklight poster from the 70s.
Nice.
Electric lime.
Yeah, that would be it.
and then the way it was almost like, again, now I wasn't born when this happened, but there was a game called Pong from the 1970s, and it had these two paddles. It was a really early
I had one.
video game. Yeah.
Ping
And
pong?
I did.
it was
You
just
guys
called
are just
Pong.
taking me
Oh,
back.
not the
Sorry.
drinking game. Sorry.
And anyways, when he was describing the movement of the craft, it made me think of Pong or the first Tron movie, the way things would just go and stop, and
Yeah.
and the other part that absolutely fascinated me was when EB opined. He said, I have a feeling that they were scanning us, and then it made me think of an MRI machine, and it creeped me out. It's like, yeah, that's right, because the MRI machine goes back and forth and back and forth and measures your head. It's going over your head or your arm or whatever's being photographed. And so, and this was, I have to admit, I did look into some UFO stories. I never heard that before. Never heard anything like that.
No, can't say that I have either.
I mean, that's very unique. And the fact that he stood under that thing for as long as he did, because most people, let's be honest, a lot of people, well, it was flying by at an unusually high speed, and it just took off to the north. That's usually what you hear. And then some jets were chasing it.
Right.
But this was a remarkable encounter in that he's standing there with a witness, with a
For
friend
so long.
for a half an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, think about half an hour.
But he felt calm.
Yeah, and then he was being instructed or cajoled into thinking, everything, tranquilo, it's okay, you're going to be fine. And I've heard that part before, that people say, I was filled with a feeling of well-being. I was told, do not fear, which is also in the Bible. Anytime an angel comes before anyone, it says, fear not. Because I have a feeling they're not delicate creatures with wings. They just must look horrible, when they come down. So all that absolutely fascinated me. And then the next part of EB's story is where I got pulled in even more as a listener, because and it compelled me to want to work on this, is the things that happened subsequent to the encounter, which was, EB had said initially, but maybe between 30 minutes. Between 27 and 30 minutes is when it did the movements, and then after the movements, it took off.
Yeah. That's the fascinating part about it as well, is that it just doing all of these little movements, like it had so much time to really observe it. And you're right, you don't get a lot of opportunity to do that.
And still recall every detail. That's not common either.
Well, what's every time I see something now, it's not often, but every now and then I will look when there's like a congressional hearing or something, and Reinhard and I will talk about it a little bit. When you hear these people like, Navy pilots or, people like that have encountered certain things, when they say, it was flying in a certain way, and then it just made like a 90-degree turn, which you can't do. A human body would be torn to shreds if it was moving at that speed and it was able to stop and turn. And they talk about the patterns that these things would fly. I usually, when that happens, I just smile and nod or shrug and just say, yeah, I know, but I knew that in 1982. Like, you're saying that now and people are hearing that now, but my version of what happened hasn't changed since June of 1982.
Oh, because it's the truth.
Yeah, it's always been the same, and it's never going to change. And so yes, it did fly that way. Also, something that there was no internet then. There was no way to look anything up. But did you know? I don't know if you've looked into this, but there are people out there from the scientific community that say, if you build something using certain elements to manipulate gravity, the machine using that would emit a green glow.
Mm-hmm.
There was no way in 1982 for me to know that. There was no way for
Mhm.
me to look it up. There's no way for me to know any of this, any of these things. All I know is what I know from what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just funny that, 40 plus years later, people are coming forward and making these observations. And I'm like, yes, I know. I'm the one person you don't have to convince.
Yeah. They still see these things. I'll show you really quickly what I found today, actually. If this is something that, here you go. A mysterious green orb captured over the Perth, Australia, leaves witnesses amazed as it skips across the sky like a stone on water. I mean, obviously, it would have been much clearer for you, but is it sort of like the green that you would have seen?
No.
Oh, interesting.
I
So
guess it
this
could
is
be
just
the
another anomaly.
resolution and camera, and
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that could be.
it's very pretty though.
Yeah.
And by the way, the green glow of it,
Mm-hmm.
this is hard to explain. A lot of this is very hard to explain.
Yeah.
But the green glow was not the object itself. The glow was around it, was emanating from it,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't part of it.
Like an
It was-
aura.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like,
So yeah,
exactly.
the glow was being caused by something.
Mm.
But the object itself was not green. And I think I said in the interview with Reinhard that if it looked like, and again, this is just such a dumb thing because it would be very easy to say, oh, it was silver. No, it wasn't silver. It was like pewter. Because there's a big difference. One is a shiny, pretty thing, and the other one is like a dull, very like industrial looking nothing of a material, but that's what it was. So I don't have to dress it up and make it sound better than it was. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, standing under it and experiencing that was the good part. I'll put it that way.
Oh.
And if you,
Yeah.
I mean, you read it, Michelle.
You did? Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that was the good part.
Yes.
And after that, really, aside from dreams, none of it was good.
Wow.
Things just devolved. And for example, I feel like I'm talking too much. Do you want to interrupt me?
No.
It's your story, Reinhard. Jump in whenever. Like you guys, we want to hear your story and both of your perspectives.
Okay.
Well, that's the most fascinating part to me is the subsequent after the sighting.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into the missing time in a second. But
Yes.
the missing time, and then it's like he's having physical and mental reactions to this, and he wasn't. It's interesting because you read the book. You're not putting two and two together. Suddenly he's listless. He can't sleep. He's agitated. People keep saying you have anxiety. You have anxiety, which is sort of a catch-all phrase. It's like cancer.
Sure.
Cancer describes a lot of different diseases, and anxiety covers a huge gamut of psychological manifestations, and he's going through all this, and then of course there's physical things that start happening that are even more alarming. EB, man, if you wouldn't mind, I think it would be wonderful if you shared with the audience about from the moment that object vanished over the horizon, what happened.
Yeah, this is when it was. Looking back on it, it makes total sense. At the time, it didn't, and it was terrifying. So the dorm, like I said, it was summertime. Very few people were at the school, and we had our meals in the basement of the dorm. They had a little cafeteria set up there. And so in the morning, we would go down and have breakfast at like 8:30 before classes. So that morning, I was sitting at the table with Delilah and Jack and a couple of other students, probably, I'm trying to remember if it was 3 or 4 other people. It was a full table. But Delilah was sitting on one side and Jack was sitting on the other side of me. And I was telling everyone very excitedly about what had just happened to us a few hours before. Because like I said, breakfast was around 8:30. We went out to the waterfall around 3 and had to have been there until probably close to 4 and then went back to the dorm. So I'm telling everyone and I'm very excited. And Jack is listening. Delilah's just sitting there listening. And the other people are kind of, like I said, smirking, rolling their eyes. You're crazy. And then it hit me very hard that I had no memory whatsoever of getting to the table for breakfast. I went from standing in the woods, watching this thing fly away, to sitting at breakfast, telling everyone about it. And it was the scariest thing that had ever happened to me in my life, because I thought I was losing my mind. How is that possible that I didn't remember walking back to the dorm with Delilah? I didn't remember changing my clothes. I didn't remember walking to the dining hall. I didn't remember anything. All I knew was I was sitting at the table talking.
Oh, how many hours have passed, you think?
We went out there, probably back to the dorm around 4, maybe a little bit after 4. And then we're down 8:30 having breakfast.
Wow.
So probably 4 hours.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, no memory whatsoever of no aspect of it. You would think that walking back to the dorm after that, it would be nonstop talking. Oh my God, can you believe it? What was that? What just happened? Or a shower, or changing clothes, or anything. But none of that happened. The only thing that happened was I was sitting at breakfast telling everyone. And it scared the hell out of me. Because like I said, I thought I was losing my mind. How is this possible? And I asked Delilah, do you remember? How did we get here? Do you remember this? And she was as stunned as I was. And it was awful. It's funny because it went from don't be afraid, everything's fine, to terror of what the hell happened in between. And I did not associate it whatsoever with the experience in the woods. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think, well, that's responsible for this. I just knew that in the moment, that's what was happening. And I couldn't understand why everything was wiped out, but it wasn't there. And so later, I went to town. I didn't go to class. I went to the little town that's next to the campus. And to make a long story short, I was walking down the street in this little town by myself and saw the street, the sidewalk, rushing up toward me. And what was really happening is that I was falling face first and didn't even feel it, didn't have that sensation of falling. It just looked like the street was coming up. And it knocked me out for a couple of seconds. And then someone suggested that I go to the clinic. They offered to take me, and I said it was okay. I would walk, and I went to the clinic. And there was a doctor there who was the most pregnant person I have ever seen in my life. She looked like, if she would have said I'm having, octuplets, I would have believed it.
Wow.
It was huge. I've never seen anything like jacket, and she was wearing a lab coat, and the lab coat, she could barely, I mean, it looked like a circus outfit, the way it was connected in the front. But anyway, she examined me. I told her what happened. And again, I didn't attribute this to anything other than I passed out in the street. I fell, I tripped, I hit my head. So she examined me. They did blood work. And she came back and she said, "You're fine. You're absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with you." She said, "But why are you here? You're not from here. Why are you here?" And I said, "I'm going to this summer program and it's kind of intense and whatever." And she said, "Well, you must be very stressed out from school because, you know, you're having a high, like anxiety, a high stress reaction. So you probably had some kind of an anxiety attack or panic attack or something and passed out. That's what that was." And I said to her, "Well, it can't be stress from school because I'm barely going to class as it is. I'm not stressed out about school. I'm not worried about my grades because I don't care. I can't wait to go home. This summer program was not for me." So I wasn't stressed out about school, but again, she told me, you're under a what's the word for it? Just like a profound amount of stress.
Sorry.
But physically there was nothing wrong with me, that I was fine and I could leave. So I went back to the dorm, and I didn't think any of these things, these three things are connected. Why would I think that? But
yeah, especially with young people, you know, when we're all that age, you don't really, you know, you don't put two and two together like that. Why? It's like you have an experience, you know, it was a fine experience, and you know, I agree with you. Why? I mean, just more benign things people don't think to put together. Something substantial like that's like, wow, I've seen UFOs. I could say, oh yeah, I saw one, but it does, and it's things that subsequently happened to me after that, I would not think to do.
Right. Yeah. I didn't make any connection there.
No, of course not. No. And she was so dismissive, which is sad.
Yeah.
Well, she was really nice. She was nice, but she was, I think, comforting me by saying nothing's really wrong with you, but then saying, but you're experiencing profound stress. It made no sense to me whatsoever because I wasn't experiencing any stress.
Yeah, but you would know.
Remember the way you described it to me. She said it's in your speech patterns and the expression on your face.
Oh yeah, that is true. She did tell me that my speech was forced. That I was, I guess, trying to get something out and wasn't. But I remember, I mean, it's been 43 years. I remember sitting on the examination table right now. I remember where the door was that she walked in and out of in that room. I remember the street. I remember walking back to the dorm after. It's just so strange. These things are very vivid.
And yet you can't remember getting back to your dorm that night.
Nope. Nothing. Nothing.
Which is interesting because you really describe these events, and I noticed in the book as well with great detail, like little details.
Yeah. I wish I knew. I mean, at the end, I'll bring it up. I guess I don't want to spoil the surprise now, but
you guys keep going.
But I know just to excuse me. To fast forward a little bit, I ended up leaving school. I said goodbye to my friend Jack and to Delilah, although not really the kind of goodbye that I wanted to have. I didn't know for many, many years what the deal was with her about whether or not she was angry at me. And if she was, why was she angry at me? Was she angry because I was leaving? Leaving her up there at that school, you know, alone, or I didn't really understand. I saw it one way, and I guess she saw it another way at the time, but it does come back later in this story. It is important. But I ended up leaving and going down to New York City because I had an aunt and uncle living in Manhattan, right by the United Nations building. And I came down and I wanted to go to school, a different school. I wanted to do something more constructive with my life and actually, get a career going. Like I said, I was having a hard time figuring out what to do with my life. And I had an interview. I talked my way into being able to have an interview at a school that normally did not interview people, especially when it was past the deadline for applying. I felt like I could make a convincing case and I could basically force them to take me into this school. And so I had to go for an interview, and I needed a haircut because I had long hair and I had to make a good impression. And my uncle gave me the money to go get a real haircut.
A real haircut. I love
a
that.
Real haircut at his
Well, it was
barber.
1982.
Yeah, I get it.
So he gave me the money and he sent me to his barber. And I was at the barber getting my haircut. And I had very dark brown hair. It was long. And I'm sitting in the barber chair having my haircut. And the barber just went, "Whoa, look at this." And he turned me in the barber chair, turned me sideways, and held up a mirror and showed me the left side of my head. And on the left side of my head, the temporal area, there was an oval, perfectly oval shaped gray spot.
Huh.
My hair on that oval, the entire oval was gray. There wasn't any gray anywhere other than that oval on the side of my head in the temporal area. So he showed it to me in the mirror. And I was like, wow, look at that. And he said, "Have you ever had this before?" And I said, "No, this is the first I'm seeing this." And the really bizarre part of the hair thing, the gray oval on the side of my head, or the silver grayish oval, is that it was only against the hair against my skull. In other words, it hadn't grown out.
Right.
Like it wasn't gray anywhere else. It was only gray right there. So I saw it and I thought, well, this must have just happened, because it couldn't have been growing for a while, or it would have been in my hair, but it wasn't in my hair. It was just that one spot of new hair in that area. So
EB, how big was it?
How big was the oval?
Yeah, how big was the oval?
I would say like an egg, size of an egg.
So that's pretty good size against the head.
Substantial.
Good size.
And by the way, horizontally, not vertically, egg shaped, horizontal. So it's an oval on the side of my head, left side, temporal area. And the barber said, "I've seen this before a couple of times and on other people." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes, it's called something." I don't remember what he called it, but he called it something. And then he said, "Some people claim that their hair will go gray from one day to the next after experiencing a terribly frightening occurrence."
That's true. Yeah, I've read that as well. Yeah.
So again, what does that have to do with me? It's not like I immediately said, "Oh yes, there's this." No, I didn't.
But you weren't terrified either, were you?
No.
At least not consciously.
No, I just saw this thing and he cut my hair and it was there. And people would ask me, people that I'd meet would say, "Oh, why do you have that thing?" And I would say, "I have no idea." But it did grow out. and I haven't had it since. I have gray hair now the hard way.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the real way.
The real,
Yeah.
But things, again, one thing after another, again, seems very innocuous, and it was. I mean, just having that thing didn't mean much.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was staying with my aunt and uncle in their apartment by the UN, and they had a TV. They had a little, like a guest room, not set up for me. It had like clothing racks for my aunt, and they set up a thing for me to sleep on the floor, and they had a TV in there, and I was watching the David Letterman show. It was the original Letterman show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was way before it was just musical acts and comedians and actors. He had anybody on that was an interesting guest.
Mm-hmm.
So I just happened to have the TV on, and he had an African-American gentleman come on. He was a black FBI agent who was on vacation with his sister and his sister's family. They were in Massachusetts. They were driving back to Washington, D.C., and they were going through part of Massachusetts and part of upstate New York on their way to Washington. And he was describing how their car was either being chased or being driven next to by a UFO. And he was describing it. And I was listening to this guy, and I was thinking, yes, exactly. Yes, I understand. And it turned out that it was June 29th that he was talking about. It was only a few days before, really just a few days.
Wow.
And I went, and that was at night. In the morning, I went to the payphone downstairs from my aunt and uncle's apartment, and I called the David Letterman show. I called the network, and I called and asked to speak to someone. They put someone on, and I said, I need to get in touch with the FBI agent that was on the show last night, because I can help him and he can help me. And they wouldn't give me the guy's contact information.
That's a shock to me, because you think that they might want to get a collaboration going or something.
Well, if they did, the assistant to the producers weren't aware of it, because all they did was tell me that they were not allowed to give away any contact information, any personal information.
Yeah.
And so that was a dead end. There was nothing I could do. I called and tried to get it, couldn't get it. But I tried over the years, once the internet became a thing available to everyone, I started trying to find the FBI agent. In his appearance on the Letterman show, he said that when he got back to work after the vacation and he reported it, they made him do a polygraph and they put him on paid leave.
Wow.
And I really wanted to talk to that guy because, like I said, I thought I could help him. Maybe I could say something that would help his bosses to understand something, or maybe he would tell me something that would help me out. But whatever, it never happened. And I've tried over the years to find this guy. Never happened.
That's too bad. I was going to ask you if you had heard of any other accounts in the area during that time, or Reinhard, if you had researched and found anything in there.
I tried to go back to the old Letterman shows in the summer of 1982.
Yeah.
And the show itself was pretty chaotic back then. It wasn't like now. Or it's off now, but you know what I mean. It became a very regimented, procedure show, and it was always somebody pushing their record or their movie or their TV show. But in 1982, it didn't even list the guest. And then EB found there was a website with sightings all over the country from one month to the next. And we did notice in 1982 there were clusters of sighting in that general area in June and July of 1982. Because the site it was by state. and by time and by date. But okay, those are the ones that were reported.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about people that saw things and said, I'm not going to tell anybody about that. I'll keep that one in here.
Maybe after the show tonight, you'll hear of more.
Yeah. June 29th, 1986.
I would love it if anybody could tell me anything about what happened at that time. I would like to know. I'll skip to an important thing. Okay. And Reinhard, let me know if I skipped too far, if I forgot something in between that might be important. But I was having a lot of trouble sleeping. It's a lot of anxiety, a lot of just fear for nothing, for no reason, a lot of anxiety. And at night, when I would try to sleep, sounds would be magnified. So a cricket outside the window would sound like a truck, driving through the wall,
That sounds like PTSD.
It was, things got very loud. I was unable to sleep until everyone else was already awake and gone. I would sleep during the day. It's like I tell people, I had a vampire lifestyle. I was awake at night and asleep during the day. I could not sleep until I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I had to be completely like passing out before I could sleep. And when I did go back to school, this very weird thing was happening with me that I would still like to know more about. I don't know who to ask, but it was this thing where if I was looking at you and you were talking to me, I could see you clearly. I could hear you perfectly well. Everything was great. If I looked down to write something down, if you were talking and you said, write down this number, and I looked down and started writing, I couldn't hear what you were saying clearly. It just sounded like buzzing or like jumbled noise.
The way you described it to me was like the teachers in Charlie Brown.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wouldn't be able to look at the paper and write if I wasn't looking at you. And as soon as I would look back up and see you, it would clear up again. But as soon as I looked away, it would go away. The voice would go away and it would become noise. Similarly, if I went outside and looked up, this is an example that I gave you, Reinhard. If I looked up at the sky, I could either see the cloud or the sky, but I couldn't see both. So it would kind of be like whatever I saw first would get my attention, and then I couldn't see the other thing. And what that was causing a lot of problems, because what that meant was when I was driving, I really had to be laser focused on what was happening directly in front of me. Because if I turned my head and looked at something to the side, then that's all I saw. And everything else disappeared. And it was really bad for a while. That didn't last long, but for the period of time that it did, it came and went. And when I did go to someone at the time, a therapist, to ask them what the hell is happening, what is that, their answer was, it's anxiety. Everything was anxiety. No matter what I said, it was anxiety. I can't sleep, it's anxiety. I can't hear and see at the same time, anxiety. I have this other thing happening, and everything was anxiety. I actually think it was, but it wasn't the anxiety that you hear about. It wasn't like I'm having anxiety because I have a final exam tomorrow. It wasn't like that. But in the midst of all that, the greatest thing was the recurring dreams. And I still say, I wish I had those dreams now. I wish I had them every night. They were always the same, exactly the same. They started the same. The progression through the dream was exactly the same. Every aspect of it was exactly the same. Do you want me to tell you what it was, or should I stop?
No, you can definitely talk about it. And then, my question, because I read it, was,
Oh, okay.
do you feel it was a dream or a memory?
Okay. Well, my answer now would be that it was a dream that contained a memory.
Ah, okay.
Because
Okay.
it wasn't one or the other.
Right. Okay.
But
Okay.
but again, there's no way in the world. Oh, by the way, the problem of being able to see you, hear your voice, write at the same time, I didn't attribute that to anything either. I still was not saying, the inability to remember at breakfast, the passing out in the street, the gray oval on the side of my head, the inability to sleep and all of the noises being so loud, the disorder where I couldn't look away and hear your voice, and all of that. Those things didn't connect to me. In my mind, they had nothing to do with each other. They were all just separate events that were not connected. But in the dream, I was always now you can't see me because my camera is not on.
Yeah.
But I don't have any notes in front of me, but I could tell you it always consisted of me wearing a t-shirt and shorts, sitting at a table in the kitchen, facing east with my back to the west, eating a bowl of cereal with a spoon in my right hand, and I would hear a tone coming from outside of the house, and it was coming from the east and south, and it would come towards me. And as soon as I heard that sound, I would get happy, but happy times infinity. Just so I don't know the word for it, just euphoric.
Right.
It was just an amazing feeling. So good.
It's almost like a trigger sound.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The sound always occurred in the same spot at the same time in the dream. I knew it was coming, and there it is. There's the sound. And as soon as I heard it, I would feel euphoric. I would jump out of my seat, run to my left, right out the front door, cross the gravel on the front yard, and to the middle of the street, turn around and look back at the house just in time to see this flat orange disc moving over the roof of the house in my direction, flying at about 1 mile an hour.
Crazy.
And like I told Reinhard, we were actually, I think, laughing about it the day that I was describing this dream. It looked like a waffle. It didn't have the squares, the little squares of the waffle, but that's what it looked like. It was round, and it was there was really no depth to it. But it was orange, and it was moving like at a snail's pace, but the sound was heavenly. It was so wonderful. I loved it. Every time that dream would start, it was the greatest experience. It was wonderful. And always the same exact thing. It's same way it started, same way it ended. And then I told Reinhard in the interview that there was only one time that it was slightly different. And that's when I was in Texas, catching a flight. And I was in the dream, I was on the tarmac at the airport. And as I was walking to the stairs to go up into the plane, I heard the sound. And the first thing I thought was, that can't happen here. That's not supposed to be here. And I turned around and there was the waffle coming out over the top of the airport terminal. But I knew that it wasn't right. Something was wrong with that. But I stopped, unfortunately, I stopped having that dream, and I have been missing it all the time ever since.
Any idea why it would just stop?
I don't know. There, it was. I would say it was replaced by something, a nighttime thing, not so great, which is something that was happening to me for a period of years. And it's too bad my wife is not sitting here right now so that she could start complaining about it.
I hope she's not listening.
that she would wake up in the middle of the night and find me standing at our bedroom window looking out to the street, and she would say, "What are you doing?" And I would say, "Don't you hear that? Do you hear that? Do you hear that rumbling sound?" She would say, "I don't hear anything." And I would say, "Well, something is coming, and I'm just waiting for it to get here. I'm just standing here looking out the window. I hear it. It's coming. It's coming in this direction. I'm waiting." And nothing ever came. But I would stand there night after night looking out the window, and it didn't matter if it was in the apartment we lived in or the house we live in now. It didn't matter where we were. I would spend sometimes hours, other times several minutes, standing at the bedroom window at night, in the middle of the night, waiting for the rumbling sound, the cause of the rumbling sound to arrive.
I've heard something similar to that.
Oh, tell me.
Yeah. Well, it's I've heard it because we've had craft around high up, mind you. So it could have been there. You may not have seen it depending on, day or night. A lot of people have reported hearing this sound. I mean, even when I was in a location in Romania, which was widely known for UFO activity, it was more of a droning thing, like a low humming. It was constant, and it was well known for having sightings. If I can, just there's a few comments and questions coming up, but one question that has come up a couple of times, if you may, is have you ever had hypnosis or been regressed? About the missing time and maybe the dreams?
I have not, and I haven't even really seriously considered doing that.
Yeah.
It's
scary. When you open that door, you got to watch.
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. Is I don't need to know the because I've had. It's hard to explain. I've had what I call impressions. That are not quite memories, or are they? I don't know. I really can't tell you. But I've had what I consider to be impressions of things, and they're all very scary.
Yeah, you open that door, you can't undo it. So it's definitely not for everyone.
Yeah. So that would be my answer to that. I do want to tell you though, again, before I forget and you run out of time, that I did have the most minor car accident. It's also in the interview in the mid 80s while I was going to school in Los Angeles. And just out of an abundance of caution, because I had a previous neck injury, and I was concerned about whiplash. I went to this little old Russian doctor who was a one-man operation near where I lived in LA. I went to his office and I had him examine me, and he said, "No, everything looks good." And he said, "I just want to do an X-ray of your head and neck." And he had an X-ray machine that looked like it would be right out of a Frankenstein movie. That's how old it was. looked like several generations before what was appropriate at the time. And he took an x-ray of my head and neck, and he brought in the film and he put it up on the light box. And he said, there's no fractures. I don't see anything. He said, but look at this. See this? And he showed me that in my left temporal area of my skull, there was a shadow. And he said, I don't know what this is. This is an artifact. That's what he called it on this x-ray film. He said, this x-ray machine cannot see inside your skull. It can't see your brain. This is only photographing your skull, but there is something that's showing up on this film. And he only showed it to me as a curiosity, not as a diagnosis of anything or a concern. He just showed it to me just to point it out. And that was in the mid 80s. And in 2000, I was complaining to my family doctor about feeling strange. And I go into it, I think, in a lot of detail when Reinhard interviewed me. And after they did a battery of tests on me, they found a oval-shaped, benign brain tumor in my left temporal area, matches the location of the gray egg in my hair, the gray egg shape in my hair. The piece of my skull that they removed in order to take out the benign growth was the shape of an egg. It's in the exact same space, same spot. And I have a titanium bracket permanently that holds that part of my skull together. And then developed some more crazy symptoms after that. But since then, I had 2 bouts of skin cancer. One of them was a week and a half ago. I had surgery. Thank you. I had, and both of the skin cancer removal surgeries were my left temporal lobe.
So you're still, after all this time, having experiences. And how long has it been? Like, Reinhard, when was the story pretty much done? Like the book?
June.
Wow. Okay.
May, June. Yeah.
Yeah. So the story continues, basically. Wow.
Everything that's ever happened in a physical manifestation has always been left temporal, nowhere else.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yes.
And the only thing left for me to tell you about that I think is important is that my friend Jack from upstate New York, he was in the program with us. I stayed in touch with him over the years, and sometimes on the phone, mostly online. And he passed away sadly a few years ago. Very young guy, and he had some weird illness. Thank you. He's a great guy, really, really great guy. Very funny, nice, super smart. But I kept in touch with him over the years, and every time I would reach out to him, especially in email or messages, instant messages. First thing I would say to him is, "Hey, do you remember that night, or do you remember that day?" And that's as far into it as I would have to get before he would write back to me and say, "Of course I remember." And then he would start to describe me, my behavior, what I was telling him contemporaneously, like at that time. It was nothing new. It was all, yes, I remember you did this, you said this happened, that happened. So I was constantly checking with him. Do you remember? Just to make sure that someone did. And he always did. And I've shown Reinhard these messages. I've sent them to him so he could see them, and they're dated. They actually showed the dates and the years that they happened, because I wanted him to see that this guy that was with me at that time
Mhm.
remembered all of the crazy stuff that was happening.
Oh yeah, he remembered. He remembered every time.
And as far as Delilah goes, so I left in summer of 1982. In the late 80s, I was in Indianapolis with my brother, and her parents lived in Indianapolis, and she had a very unique name, and her dad had a very unique name. I looked him up in a phone book. Remember those?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
yeah, I called her parents' house. It was the only time I'd ever been in Indianapolis in my life. Late 80s, called her parents' house, and her mother answered the phone, and I said, "Hi, you don't know me, but I'm a friend of your daughter. I went to school with her for a short time, and I want to get in touch with her." And her mother said, "Well, she's here having dinner with us.
Oh.
Let me get her." And I was very excited, and she got on the phone with me, and I said, "Hi." And she said, "Hi." And I said, "Listen, do you remember the night that we went out and she stopped me and she said, 'I don't want to talk about it.'
Oh.
She said, 'I'm an assistant attorney general for the state of Indiana.
Oof.
The last thing I need is for anyone to think I'm a crackpot.'"
Mm-hmm.
And I
Oh,
always
boy.
make sure to say that word, because that's not a word that I would use. That was the word she used.
But it's a word I would use.
Yeah.
I think it's a word that needs a revival. I like
Yeah.
crack.
Crackpot. I like it.
She wouldn't let me even finish the sentence. And and it was a very quick phone call, not a very friendly call on her end. And for years after that, I would send letters. I would actually write letters and send them to her parents' house. I called her office a few times. She became a lawyer, obviously. Called her office. She never called me back. Once email became a thing, I started emailing her. She never emailed me back. And all I wanted to do was get an answer to the question, do you remember that night? Do you remember what happened that night? That's all I wanted to know. And last winter, when Reinhard and I were in the process of talking, I emailed her to her office and I said, "This is the last time I'm going to do this, because you just refused to answer, and I don't know why. If you're mad at me for something, I don't know what it is. Please tell me." I said, "I really just want to talk to you, and if you don't respond this time, I'm not going to bother you again. Believe me, I won't." And she wrote back to me, and she said, "Okay, let's talk." And we set up a time to talk. I recorded it on a dictaphone, and in that, Reinhard also has seen all these messages over the years, the emails and whatever. But when we got on the phone, we spent the first half hour of the phone call talking about our lives since 1982. And then she said, "Okay, so what's the burning question that you've been wanting to ask me all these years? What is it?" So I said, "Do you remember the night that we went out to the waterfall?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Great. What happened out there? What do you remember?" And she said, "I remember it was really hot. We went out there. We stood under the water. It felt really good." I said, "Okay, and then what happened?" And she said, "Nothing." And I said, "Well, what do you mean nothing?" And she was like, "No, nothing. I don't remember anything else." She said, "Why? What else? What happened?" And I said, "Well, I'm not going to tell you. I want you to tell me." So she said, "I don't remember anything else happening."
Wow.
And it was very, very upsetting to me, because she was the one person in the world that could confirm the whole thing. So she said, "I don't remember anything. Tell me." And I said, "Well, let me ask you this. Do you remember that we went for breakfast in the morning?" And she said, "Yes, I do. That I do remember." And I said, "Okay, great. Do you remember going back to the dorm?" And she said, "No. Now that you mention it, no." I don't remember going back to the dorm. And I said, what else do you remember about that night? She remembered us going out to the waterfall, and that's all.
Wow.
She remembered nothing.
Wow. So you remembered more.
I remembered. She didn't remember anything. But then this is where it got very good for me. I said to her, but this doesn't make sense, because if you don't remember anything happening that night, how come when I called you in the late 80s, you said, I can't afford to have anybody think I'm a crackpot. I'm an assistant attorney general at the state of Indiana. I can't have anyone think I'm a crackpot. What were you afraid of talking to me about that would have made people think you were crazy? And she said, that's a good question. I don't know. And I said, but you do remember me calling you. She said, oh, I remember that vividly. And she said, and I do remember telling you that I didn't want to talk about it. So I said, about what? And it didn't matter how I asked her. She kept on saying, I don't know.
She couldn't pull it out.
No, she said, I don't know. I said, but you did know at the time that you couldn't talk to me about something that would make you sound crazy. You were afraid to hurt your career. And she said, yes, she did remember that. So to me, I felt vindicated that there was something. She knew something wasn't right. And in the late 80s, she refused to talk about it. And now she doesn't remember. And
she was upset with you for leaving.
Yes.
For what reason?
I asked her about
many questions.
I asked her about that. I said, were you mad at me because you never answered my letters? You never took my calls. Were you mad at me? And she said, no. She said, I don't remember ever being mad at you. She said, I remember that the word she used, she said, I remember that when you left, you were very mysterious. That was the word she used.
And can I ask if she had any of the issues, medical issues and such, similar to what you had, or at least maybe it was a different pile, but did she go through any of that as well?
I didn't ask.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't ask because I didn't feel like I could pry into personal like health stuff with her. It doesn't mean that I still can't ask her, but I'll tell you, because it comes right back to something you said a couple of minutes ago. She said, maybe I should have hypnotherapy.
Yeah, she did say that. And she wasn't closed to the idea that something didn't happen. She was like, well, maybe something did. I just don't remember. And then she said, but that's not like me. But she was very open to the idea of getting hypnotherapy.
Yeah, that would open so many doors, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and it's funny because as we talked for an hour, and as the hour progressed, it's not that she was getting warmed up, but she started making more comments about how, yes, there's something here. This doesn't seem just like a typical, we knew each other. And then we didn't see each other. I've never seen her since, but I mean, we knew each other. We experienced something very intense together. And then everything that happened after that, up until this phone call, was very weird. Like, why would you have a close friendship with someone? We were very close because we were both alone up there, really. And with Jack, we didn't know anybody up there. We glommed onto each other and we were very close friends. We were together 24 hours a day. So why would you go from that to, I won't take your calls, I won't answer your letters, and when I do finally take your call, I won't let you ask me a single question?
Yeah. It would be really curious to see what happened on board Craft to you both.
Well, there are the impressions that I talk about in the interview. They're scary.
Yeah.
And because there are things that I saw, but there are things that I felt and didn't see. And those things scare me. They still scare me. I think, I mean, if you remember, I said a thing during the interview that it's very difficult for me to look at the door, my bedroom door at night.
Yeah, when it's open.
When my bedroom door is open at night and I'm in bed, I turn my back to the door. I can't look at the open door because of what might be there. And speaking rationally, what's going to be there? Nothing. But that has nothing to do with the experience that I have at night, still to this day, that I have to turn my back to it because of what I might see. And that was the feeling that I had. There's something right behind me that I can't turn around and look at.
No, you've got that memory that you're just trying to bring forward, or it could just be fear itself that's, keeping you from bringing it forward. Reinhard, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, the part that got me as we were, working on this was what he was just discussing was, I have this impression of being in a somewhat large room, and he said, and there's something behind me that's not human. And he said, and I don't want to look at it. That absolutely terrified me. That kept me up at night.
Wow.
The idea looming over you. And then the way he ended before the part with Delilah, the interview with, the conversation they had where he said, I wish I hadn't looked up that night. Which goes against, in the movie The Thing in 1950, everybody watched the skies. EB
it may not have mattered though.
Yeah, he wish I hadn't looked.
They see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my overall impression, and I was really pleased that he spoke with Delilah because it was miraculous, because we were in the middle of putting all this together when he got her on the phone. Because I thought that was going to be a missing chapter. I thought that was going to be, the missing link. And then when he spoke with her, she didn't say, "Oh, that never happened." I can adamantly say that never. She didn't do that. She just said, "Hey, it may have. I just don't remember it." And I'm open to getting hypnotherapy to look into my missing memories. And how he did remember it in 1989.
How in the world would you not remember that?
A lot of times they're called screen memories. They just wipe you.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm just saying, let's pretend that I don't even know how to say it. I'm just saying, how would you experience something like that and not remember it? Well, because something would have had to have happened to make sure that you don't remember it. Right. But to say, oh yeah, we went out there, we went and stood under the waterfall and cooled off, but nothing else happened. Really? How do you have that great of a memory for one thing, and what happened 10 minutes later, an hour later, 4 hours later, you don't remember? You're basically confirming what I'm saying, which is something happened that for whatever reason you can't remember it. But if you remember standing under the waterfall, you were there. You were definitely there. I was very happy to find out at the end. I'm not a science person. I think I said that 100 times in the book. I don't know anything about this stuff or how any of it works. I'm not into it, and I don't know. But I was very happy to find out, and I actually just looked it up out of my own curiosity to see if I was crazy, because the orb was the size of a car.
Yeah.
But the room that I stood in was the size of a house or a warehouse. And I said to Reinhard, how can something be small on the outside and big on the inside? And then I looked it up, and actually it's included. There's like 3 different theories that actually explain how that can happen. And I can't explain it, but I can tell you it's real. Something can be the size of a car on the outside and the size of a warehouse on the inside.
Well, if you're taken somewhere, you have 4 hours of missing time. You could easily have been taken somewhere and then drop right back off in the same spot. You would never have been the wiser.
Yeah.
That's that's a viable explanation. These things allegedly move super quick, go to point A to point B relatively fast, may not even have been that far away. All they had to do was go up.
Right.
Nobody would have noticed it, and then bring you right back down.
Yeah.
There's a
Well,
lot of things to factor in, but there was one comment that I saw in the book that really stands out, and it was, "Don't look up unless you want to take the chance that your life will be turned upside down and that you'll be ridiculed."
yeah. Yeah. And if we got scanned and that's to blame for issues that I've had, then I wish I wouldn't have been out there that night. I mean, why, you'd have to be crazy to wish things on yourself just for, a half an hour of being able to see something that very few people ever see.
Well, here's a thought, and this is something that Wayne is making note of, and I just want to put it out there for you, because I'm going to ask you in a minute another question, and you can maybe just give this some thought, because this happens, by the way. I wonder if the benign tumor that was discovered may have once been cancerous. If that was the case, could this object, or this thing that you saw, scan you, notice a tumor, and basically radiated it? There's a lot of stories of people being healed.
Yeah.
Wow. I've never considered that.
And it makes sense for the white ink oval as well. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've never thought of that.
It's food for thought, because there's a lot of stories out there about people being healed. If there's a scan taking place, they would have seen it. Maybe that's why you just have more issues than Delilah would have had. So I mean, I guess my question, to you, and then I'm going to ask Reinhard a question, is there anything positive that's come out of this experience for you?
Me?
Yeah. Can you think, now that in hindsight, like now that you pretty much have gotten all of this information out and sitting down with Reinhard writing this book, you're pretty much going through those details again. And sometimes when you go over details, you remember other things, and you probably go through this process for possibly the rest of your life. But is there any snippet in there that you could say, you know what, okay, yeah, maybe there's a little positive thing out of there? Or is just all...
Yeah, no, it's sad that I have had so many issues following that night. But I will say that there are some things that are very clear to me that I want people to know, and that I did include in my conversation with Reinhard. And it's something that does bother me a lot when I do see other stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
Just like we were told not to be afraid, I would tell people, don't be afraid. The thoughts of beings having a plan to destroy us is silly. And look, I can't tell you exactly why, but I can tell you that I know, because I know. And there is no malintent going on. There is no plan out there for us to be destroyed or enslaved, or the earth to be, conquered or anything. It's all nonsense. It's a science fiction world, and that's not real. You really have to think it through. And if you think it through, you'll understand that there is no point to that. There is nothing to be by that. Just imagine if other beings are joining us here, and they're so far beyond what we are, they couldn't care less about the petty, crazy stuff that we do. They're not interested.
No,
You know,
this is a good point. If they wanted us gone, we really would be gone by now.
Those
Yeah.
Navy pilots said something like that. They said with technology like this, they could wipe us out in an instant.
yeah, there is
Yeah.
nothing. There is
Yeah.
nothing. The other thing is the other thing that I really would like people to consider, and I hope that they would believe it, is there really isn't any point to wondering how long it would take something to get here
Mhm.
from the next nearest place,
Mhm.
because we're a blip in history,
It's true.
and they have been here before. They've been here
Mhm.
before we've been here, so they were here before we got here.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Yes. Yes.
So they're not coming from anywhere. They were
Mhm.
here. We're the ones. We're visiting.
Hmm.
So, but I have positive feelings about it, to just tell people this is real. Good things can come from this. If you're
Mhm.
waiting for the war between the Earth and the aliens to happen, you're crazy. You've seen too many movies,
Hmm.
and I've seen too many movies. And
Yeah.
I like movies, but I'm just saying it's really silly to think that. That's all just us being small and insecure, and
Hmm.
maybe thinking too much of ourselves, maybe.
Hmm. Well, maybe now you have just an extra little snippet to consider that maybe you were healed.
No, that's a great thought. I like that.
Yeah, it's very possible. You can read all kinds of accounts. You should look up Preston Dennett. He's one of our hosts here. He's one of the most respected researchers out there, an author, and he's written all kinds of stories that come from people who have been healed
Yeah.
by ETs. There's so many of them. It's crazy. There's all kinds of stuff.
You've probably seen him on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, he's done all kinds of stuff. But Reinhard, what were your hopes in writing this book ultimately? And now that it's out
Selfishly,
there?
I mean, selfishly.
Honestly.
Oh,
Well, you
I-
any old way.
yeah,
Selfish, not selfish.
I like great stories. I like to write
Yeah.
great stories. I like to be part of great stories.
Yeah.
Be, entertaining and thought provoking and incisive stories are, for any writer, that is the greatest thing in the world. It's the most wonderful thing you can be part of. And when EB was sharing with me his story, I thought, well, this has got to be told. It's a wonderful. It's scary. Yeah, it's got everything. It's frightening in places. It's hopeful in places. It's bewildering.
Mhm.
And you put all that together, and then it's within the world of, what are UAPs, what are UFOs, what are they doing here?
Mhm.
I think he answers some of that. It takes some of the edge off. This isn't War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise won't have to run away
Mhm.
from the Martian
If
heat
only.
rays.
Yeah.
And
Mars attacks.
yeah, and Mars attacks, or
Right.
or
Yeah.
the Thing, on the South
You've
Pole.
essentially immortalized this. So when EB's just like, well, you don't want to forget, and you've pretty much documented this account, so it's there forever.
Yeah,
Long
that's,
after you're both gone.
yeah, that's the great thing about books and movies and everything. It's always there forever.
Yeah.
It'll always be around. Well, let's hope. But
Yeah.
for me, it was just a phenomenal story to be a part of, and it was my honor that EB trusted me enough to tell this and
Mhm.
and help put it together with him. And it's something I'm very proud of. I mean, because all writers, there's some things you work on and you walk away from. It's like, oh boy. And in movie writing, there's you remember the Writers Guild of America, and they have this thing called credit arbitration. Okay.
Yes.
And I've written on many movies that my name is not on, and I'm happy because
Yeah.
I didn't contribute enough to be credited, but in some ways that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Whereas this is very much something that I'm very, very proud of, and I feel very strongly about. And I think EB is a very a courageous, stalwart, and admirable man.
Mhm.
Come forward with this story because ultimately it's a story of hope.
Yes.
I second that. That's phenomenal. I think it's a
Yes.
soul match.
Now, you had one of last question. You had basically said when you were writing this, like, I need evidence. Like, show me, show me. Don't just tell me. Show me. Obviously, you got what you were looking for.
Well, I mean, like a lawyer putting together a case. I mean, he's
Yes.
the law guy. He went to law school, and
Yeah.
and you hear all these corroborating. I mean, I've seen the doctor's reports. I've seen, the transcripts of the conversations that he had with Delilah. I mean, it's all there, and this just. I mean, if he were making this up, it's absurd for me to even consider that. Because when people make things up, there's inconsistencies.
Yes.
Always when they're telling. I mean, police will say that, and the FBI. But when you're talking with someone who really went through something, it's the same story every time. Sometimes a few more embellishments come out. I shouldn't say embellishment, details. Some more details come along. But it's just the person remembering something. The brain is creaky sometimes. His certainly isn't. I mean, I'm a little younger than EB. I don't. I mean, in 1982, I mean, I remember some things. Yeah. I was never a heavy drinker or a stoner or anything like that, but I just, you just grow older and you forget.
It's true.
Except if you're EB, except for 4 hours. I can.
Right, except for those
he's got 4
hours.
hours, and I think that was artificially taken from him.
Yes, I agree. Well, I'm, so grateful, for the opportunity to read the book, and we're so pleased that you decided to join us tonight and share your experience, EB, and Reinhard, giving us your perspective as to how you felt going along, and the book. Let's put this amazing book back up as well, and. Where are you hiding? The book is hiding. The book is hiding. Okay.
It's over there in the corner.
Yeah, it's over there in the corner. Where in the corner?
I have mine right here.
Okay, why don't we do that?
Bring that up.
Because I'm struggling
okay.
with technology. Right. There it is.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
The Orb Incident. Wonderful. And this can be found on Amazon. Kat had asked early on if she could buy directly from you, get a signed copy, that sort of thing. I'm not sure if you offer that.
Of course. Yeah. EB, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I mean, if someone wants to get in touch with Michelle, and Michelle will get in touch with you, and then whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Leave me out of it. I'm busy.
Yeah, of course.
But
of course.
The other thing I wanted to say is, it's funny when you held up the book, Reinhard. It's not the right green.
Yeah. I remember you said that when the guy brought the cover art. You said, that's not the electric line.
Yeah. And I've gone to stores that have those paint chips, the whole wall of paint samples. I've tried for years and years and years to find anything that I could just say, oh, thank God, this is it. This is the color. And someone told me recently, I think it could have been a friend who read the book, said the reason you can't find it is because that color does not exist here.
Yeah. Yeah, because every star emits a certain color scheme. Right, and we would see on other planets that are lit by other suns, you would see colors that are not in our spectrum, because the star gives off different. Every star gives off a different type of radiation.
It's like white light too, reflection.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, it's been an incredible show. It really has.
Thank you for having us. I mean,
thank you.
This has been wonderful.
What an honor to have you both. It's such an honor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys were great, and I just so appreciate the time that you've spent with us. It's just been very enlightening, and like I said, it's been very, very different. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So everybody, thank you for tuning in. You've been watching
myself
and Amelia with EB David and Reinhard Denke. here on the Outer Realm. We've been broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. Tomorrow night, tune in. Tobias Wayland returns to talk about his book, Strange Tales of the Impossible, compiled from the Singular Fortean Society's case files. Everything is connected. I promise you it is. So have a terrific evening. Much love to all of you who are listening. Much love to everybody in chat. Thank you, Reinhard. Thank you,
Thank
EB.
you.
Thank you.
Good night.
you.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.